I earned $42,000 a year as a registered nurse, and my daughter needed a $500,000 heart surgery. The numbers didn't add up. They never would. I sat in Dr. Morrison's office at Vancouver General Hospital, staring at the treatment plan that might as well have been written in a foreign language for all the good it did me. My daughter Emma was 8 years old. She had a congenital heart defect that had suddenly worsened. Without surgery, she had maybe 6 months. With surgery, she could live a normal life. "Miss Chen," Dr. Morrison said gently, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I understand this is overwhelming. Have you looked into provincial coverage?" I had. I'd looked into everything. The surgery Emma needed was experimental, only available at a specialized clinic in Toronto. It wasn't covered by our healthcare system yet. The words "not medically necessary" kept appearing in rejection letters, even though my daughter's life depended on it. "I've applied for everything," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Every grant, every charity, every loan I could find. I'm $80,000 in debt from nursing school still. No bank will give me more." Dr. Morrison's face softened with sympathy, but sympathy wouldn't save my daughter. I worked the night shift that evening in a daze. I'd been a nurse for 7 years, ever since Emma's father left when she was 1. I'd raised her alone, worked doubles, sacrificed everything, and it still wasn't enough. Around 2 in the morning, I was assigned to a new patient in the private wing. We rarely got patients there. It was reserved for people who paid extra for luxury care. I grabbed the chart. Malcolm Whitmore, 58 years old, suffering from a degenerative neurological condition. When I entered his room, I was struck by how normal he looked. Not frail or sickly, just a man with graying hair and tired eyes, sitting up in bed with a book. The room was filled with expensive equipment, fresh flowers, a view of the city lights. "You must be the new night nurse," he said, his voice cultured, almost musical. "The last one quit yesterday." "I'm Claire," I said, checking his vitals. "How are you feeling tonight?" "Like I'm dying slowly," he said matter-of-factly. "But then, I suppose I am." I'd learned not to react to statements like that. Patients said all sorts of things at 2 in the morning, but something in his tone made me look up. "The doctors tell me I have perhaps a year," he continued, watching my face carefully. "A brain tumor. Inoperable. I'm here because I collapsed at a business dinner. Very embarrassing." "I'm sorry," I said, because what else could I say? "Don't be. I've had 58 good years. Built a real estate empire from nothing. Never married, no children. What's there to mourn?" He paused. "But I notice you look like you're mourning something." I shouldn't have said anything. It was unprofessional. But maybe it was the exhaustion, or the hopelessness, or the fact that this stranger would never see me again after tonight. "My daughter needs surgery," I heard myself say. $500,000. I can't save her." The words hung in the air between us. Malcolm Whitmore studied me for a long moment. "Tell me about her," he said. So I did. I told him about Emma's love of painting, how she wanted to be an artist when she grew up, how she never complained, even when she was too tired to play, how bright and brave she was, how she told me not to cry because everything will be okay, Mama. I don't know why I told this dying stranger my whole life story. Maybe because he listened like it mattered. When my shift ended, I expected never to see him again, but 3 days later, I was assigned to his care permanently, and the day after that, he made an offer that stopped my heart. "Marry me," he said simply, as I was checking his medication. I nearly dropped the pill bottle. "I'm sorry?" "Marry me for 1 year. I'll pay for your daughter's surgery, clear your debts, and give you $200,000 annually. When I die, you'll inherit enough to ensure Emma never wants for anything." I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. "That's insane." "Probably," he agreed. "But I've been thinking. I'm going to die alone in a sterile room, and my money will go to distant cousins who've never spoken to me. Meanwhile, your daughter will die because our system failed her. It seems like we could help each other." "Why would you do this?" I whispered. Malcolm looked out the window at the sunrise. "I've spent my whole life building an empire, but I've been in this hospital for 2 weeks, and the only person who's treated me like a human being is you. You defended me to that rude orderly last Tuesday. You brought me decent coffee when you noticed I hated the hospitals. You talked to me like I'm a person, not a dying billionaire. I remembered that. An orderly had been rough with him, and I'd reported it. It hadn't seemed like a big deal. This is crazy, I said. It's practical, he countered. You need money. I need. He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. I need to not die completely alone. I need to know my life meant something to someone. But marriage, on paper only, he assured me. You'll live in my house, for appearance's sake, but you'll have your own space. No expectations beyond showing up to a few public events. When I'm gone, you're free. I thought of Emma, pale in her hospital bed. I thought of the rejection letters, the mounting bills, the impossible numbers. I need to think about it, I managed. Of course, Malcolm said. But Claire? Your daughter doesn't have much time to wait. I went home that morning and held Emma while she slept. I looked at her medical bills, her treatment plan, the calendar marking down the months she had left, and I made a decision that would change everything. 3 weeks later, I stood in a lawyer's office and signed papers that made me Mrs. Claire Whitmore. The wedding was simple, just us and 2 witnesses. Malcolm wore a suit, I wore my best dress. Neither of us smiled for the photos. The money for Emma's surgery was transferred that afternoon. By the end of the week, we had an appointment at the Toronto clinic. By the end of the month, my daughter was in recovery, her heart finally beating strong and steady. I should have been happy. Instead, I felt like I'd sold something I could never get back. Malcolm's house in West Vancouver was beautiful in a cold way, all glass and steel and expensive art that meant nothing to me. He showed me to my room on the 2nd floor. His was on the 3rd. Mrs. Chen will manage the household, he said, introducing me to a stern-looking woman in her 60s. If you need anything, ask her. I'm usually in my office or at physical therapy. Physical therapy? I asked. The tumor affects my motor control, he explained, his voice flat. I've been losing coordination. The doctors say eventually I'll need a wheelchair, then I won't be able to move at all. Then, I'll stop breathing. Very efficient, really. The way he talked about his own death was chilling, like it was a business transaction, not the end of his life. Is there anything I should know? I asked. About being your wife? Don't talk to the press. Attend the charity gala next month. Otherwise, live your life. I won't bother you. He left me standing in that beautiful, empty room, and I'd never felt more alone. The first month was strange. I barely saw Malcolm. I'd moved Emma in once she was cleared to travel, and she loved the house. She painted in the sunroom, played in the massive garden, slowly regained her strength. Watching her run without gasping for breath made every awkward moment worthwhile. But something felt wrong, off. I couldn't put my finger on it. Malcolm was deteriorating faster than the doctors predicted. Some days he couldn't hold a coffee cup. Other days he seemed fine. His mood swung wildly between lucid and confused. I'd find him staring at walls, forgetting where he was. It's the tumor, Mrs. Chen said when I mentioned it. Best not to upset him. But I was a nurse. I knew neurological conditions, and something about his symptoms didn't quite fit. It started small. I noticed Malcolm was worse after certain meals. After visits from his business partner, Gregory Ashford, he'd be confused for hours. After his ex-wife Natalie stopped by with homemade soup, he couldn't remember my name. I told myself I was being paranoid. Grief made people suspicious. But then I found myself checking his medication one night when I couldn't sleep. Malcolm's pill organizer sat on his bathroom counter. I knew I shouldn't look. It wasn't my business, but my nursing instincts were screaming. The medications were wrong. Not wrong like mislabeled, wrong like they shouldn't exist. I recognized 2 of them as drugs that would actively worsen neurological symptoms. Another was a sedative strong enough to cause confusion and memory loss. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and photographed the bottles. Then I went to his medical records, which he kept in his study. I knew the passcode because I'd seen him enter it once. The official diagnosis was glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor. But as I read through the actual scans and reports, something didn't add up. The tumor was there, yes, but it was small, slow-growing. The kind that could be monitored for years, possibly even treated. Not the death sentence Malcolm had been told. I sat in his study until dawn, pieces clicking together. Someone was lying to him about how sick he was. Someone was giving him medications that made him appear worse. Someone wanted him to think he was dying faster than he actually was. But who? And why? The answer came 2 days later when I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I'd taken Emma to her follow-up appointment and came home early. I heard voices in Malcolm's study, his business partner Gregory and Natalie, his ex-wife. Needs to sign the documents before he's completely incompetent, Gregory was saying. Once we have power of attorney, we can move forward with the sale. He's getting suspicious, Natalie replied. He asked me yesterday why he felt worse after I visited. Then increased the dosage. We're too close now. I stopped breathing, stood frozen in the hallway, phone clutched in my hand. What about the wife? Natalie asked. The nurse? She's nobody. Signed a contract. She'll get her money and leave when he dies. She won't ask questions. But I was asking questions. And suddenly, I understood. They weren't just making Malcolm think he was dying. They were actually killing him. Slowly, carefully, with medications that mimicked and worsened his condition. They'd convinced him he had months to live, so he'd marry someone quickly, someone who wouldn't inherit anything substantial. Then they'd get control of his company while he was incompetent, and eventually he'd die. And everyone would think it was the tumor. I backed away silently, my heart hammering. I went upstairs and locked myself in my room, trying to think. If I told Malcolm, would he believe me? We barely knew each other. For all he knew, I could be part of it. If I went to the police, what proof did I have? A successful businessman and his ex-wife against a desperate woman who'd married for money? But if I did nothing, Malcolm would die. Really die. And they'd get away with it. I looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her bed for the first time in years. Malcolm had given me that. He'd given my daughter her life back, asking nothing in return but companionship in his final days. Days that might not have to be so final after all. I made my decision. That night, I brought Malcolm his evening medication as usual, but instead of watching him take it, I sat down across from him. We need to talk, I said, and you need to trust me, even though you have no reason to. I told him everything, the medications, the medical records, the conversation I'd overheard. I watched his face go from confused to disbelieving to horror as the pieces fell into place. Natalie and Gregory, he whispered. They've been all this time. You're sick, I said gently. The tumor is real, but it's treatable. You could have years, not months. They've been poisoning you to make you think you're dying faster. Malcolm's hands shook as he reached for his phone. We need to call the police. We need proof first, I said. If we accuse them without evidence, they'll disappear, and you'll still be taking these medications. What do you suggest? I thought about it, my nursing brain working through the problem. We get you to a different doctor. We get new scans, real opinions. We document everything, and we catch them in the act. Over the next week, Malcolm played along, pretending to get worse while I secretly switched his medications for placebos. I documented everything, every pill, every visit, every suspicious symptom. Malcolm saw a specialist in secret who confirmed what I'd suspected. His tumor was treatable. Not curable, but manageable. He could have 5, maybe 10 good years with the right treatment. But the medications he'd been taking, they were slowly killing him. We set up cameras in his study, his bedroom. We waited. And finally, we caught Natalie on video switching his pills. We caught Gregory coaching her on dosages. We caught them discussing the timeline for his death, the sale of his company, how they'd split the money. When we went to the police with everything, the videos, the medications, the medical records, they arrested both of them that night. The investigation revealed everything. Natalie and Gregory had been having an affair for 2 years. When Malcolm's tumor was discovered, they'd bribed a doctor to exaggerate the prognosis. They'd slowly increased the poisoning, making him sicker, foggier, more desperate. The quick marriage to me had been their mistake. They'd thought I'd be easy to manipulate, another victim who'd take the money and run. They hadn't counted on me actually caring, on me being a nurse who'd recognize the symptoms, on Malcolm and me becoming something like friends through all of this. The trial took 8 months. Both were convicted of attempted murder, fraud, and a dozen other charges. Malcolm's company was secure. His health, while not perfect, improved dramatically once he was off the poisoned medications. And somewhere in all of that, our fake marriage started feeling less fake. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden moment of realization. It was Emma calling him Uncle Malcolm and him tearing up. It was him helping with her homework while I made dinner. It was me finding him painting with her in the sunroom, both of them covered in colors. It was nights talking until dawn about everything and nothing. It was him saying, 6 months after the trial, "You know you don't have to stay. The contract's fulfilled." It was me saying, "I know, but what if I want to?" He looked at me, really looked at me. "Claire, I'm still sick. I still have a tumor. I might have 10 years, or I might have 2. It's not fair to you or Emma." "Life isn't fair," I said. "If it was, my daughter wouldn't have almost died at 8. You wouldn't have been poisoned by people you trusted. But we're here anyway, and I'd rather spend whatever time you have left with you than spend the rest of my life wondering what if." Malcolm reached for my hand, his grip steadier now but still careful. "Are you sure?" I thought about the man I'd met a year ago, dying and alone, offering everything to a stranger. I thought about how he'd played chess with Emma while recovering, how he'd held me when the PTSD from almost losing her hit at 3 in the morning, how he'd never once made me feel like I owed him anything, even though I owed him everything. "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. We got married again a year later. A real wedding this time, with Emma as the flower girl and friends who were actually friends. Malcolm walked me down the aisle himself, no wheelchair needed. Not yet, anyway. The tumor is still there. It always will be. Some days are hard. Some days he forgets things or struggles with coordination. Some days Emma and I have to be patient while he finds words that used to come easy. But he's here. He's alive. He has time. And I learned something through all of this, something I tell Emma, something I tell the young nurses I mentor now. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be worth living. Love doesn't have to be convenient to be real. And sometimes the people who save us are the ones we agreed to save first. Malcolm gave me the money to save my daughter, but in the end, I saved him too. Not because I had to, not because of any contract, but because somewhere between the fake marriage and the real one, between the desperation and the healing, I'd fallen in love with him. They tell you in nursing school that you can't get emotionally involved with patients. They tell you to keep boundaries, stay professional, protect your heart. But they never tell you what to do when a dying man offers you everything and asks for nothing in return. They never tell you what to do when you discover he's not dying at all, just being murdered slowly by people he loved. They never tell you what to do when saving his life means risking your own future. I'm 62 now. Emma is 17, healthy, preparing for art school. Malcolm is 69, still fighting his tumor, still here. We've had 9 years since that hospital room, 9 years we almost didn't get. Some days I think about the Claire who walked into that hospital room at 2 in the morning, desperate and broken and hopeless. I think about the choice she made, the risk she took. I think about how easily it could have gone wrong. But mostly, I think about how lucky I am that the dying billionaire I married for my daughter's surgery turned out to not be dying at all. That the stranger who offered me everything became the love of my life. That the contract marriage became a real one. And I think about what I've learned. That love finds you in the strangest places. That courage sometimes looks like accepting help. That family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's a dying man, a desperate woman, and a little girl who needed them both. Malcolm tells people that I saved his life. But the truth is, we saved each other. He gave me hope when I had none. I gave him a reason to fight when he'd given up. Emma gave us both something to live for. Is it perfect? No. We have hard days. We have hospital visits and medication schedules and the constant awareness that our time is limited. But everyone's time is limited. We're just more aware of it. And maybe that's the real gift. Not the money, not the security, but the awareness that every day matters. that every moment is borrowed time and we'd better use it well. So we do. We paint with Emma. We watch sunrises. We make memories. We love each other fiercely, desperately, gratefully, because we almost didn't get this. We almost lost it all to lies and greed and poison. But we didn't. We're here, and that's everything. If there's a lesson in all this, it's this. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is pay attention. I noticed the wrong medications. I noticed the pattern. I noticed because I cared, because I'd been trained to care, because caring is what nurses do. But also this, trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, investigate. When someone needs help, help them, even if it's inconvenient. When you're given a chance at something real, take it, even if it's terrifying. And finally, love isn't always romantic or easy or simple. Sometimes it's a contract that becomes real. Sometimes it's standing between someone and the people trying to kill them. Sometimes it's choosing to stay when you could leave. I chose to stay. And that choice gave me everything: a husband I love, a daughter who's thriving, a life I never imagined when I was sitting in that doctor's office, staring at numbers that didn't add up. The numbers still don't add up, actually. You can't quantify love. You can't put a price on time. You can't calculate the value of waking up next to someone who was supposed to die 7 years ago but didn't, because you noticed his medication was wrong. Malcolm asks me sometimes if I regret it. The fake marriage, the risk, the complications. I tell him the truth. I regret that I almost didn't say yes. I regret that I almost let fear win. I regret every moment I wasted thinking this couldn't be real. But I don't regret him. I don't regret us. I don't regret choosing love over